Welcome back to the Grindhouse, sickos. So today I'm going to be watching Guinea Pig Devil's Experiment. Apparently there are people who say that that the Guinea Pig series is the most disturbing film series on Earth. I'm going to be the judge of that. I've never seen the first Guinea Pig movie. I've only seen clips of it. I watched Spooky Rice's video slightly, but I haven't seen the full thing for myself. So this is how I sound before the movie. Let's see how I sound after the movie. Hi, sickos. So, I just finished watching Guinea Pig Devil's Experiment. Wow. What a waste of time. Was it disturbing? In some ways, yes. What was disturbing about it? I'm about to tell you. So, something you should know about this movie is, as soon as it opens... Oh, first of all, I need to explain something to you guys. There's going to be lots of stills in this episode, or this review, because I literally can't show you guys anything. I literally can't. I can show you stills, but I can't show you video, because the movie is that graphic that I will get in trouble. So, anyways, let's get on to the review. Well, first, a short synopsis. What you should know is, first of all, the movie opens up with text, Japanese text, but thankfully the people at f.movies.com have or probably the people who made the DVD, translated it for us. And basically it states about a guy who received a letter in the mail, and inside the letter was a videotape. And the videotape contained the actual guinea pig film. And it goes on to say how what did it even say? I forgot. I forget a lot of things. But basically what it's saying is that he received that letter in the mail by an anonymous person. And then it proceeds to show us a car driving down a road. And then it cuts to a bag in a tree. And inside the bag there was a girl who is all rolled up in a ball. She's curled up in a ball in the fetal position, and she's dangling from the trees. Then it cuts to black, and by the way, the whole time it's driving down the road and it shows us that image of the girl, there's like this ominous droning music playing, which very much sets the mood of ambiance for this film, because there is no music in this movie, only ambiance. Then it cuts to a black screen and text appears on screen called hit. We then see the girl who has been tied up in a small dark room, and there's 3 members around her. One of them closes the blinds of the facility they're in, probably so that no one can see them. They then walk over to her and begin to slap her. One of them slaps her. And throughout the whole movie you'll get these numbers on the side, and these numbers are basically how many times the girl has been hit or has had something done to her for a long period of time or a number of times. He slaps her a bunch of times until a text on the side of the screen says 10, indicating that she's been hit 10 times. They continue to hit her until another text appears saying that she's been hit 50 times. I'm pretty sure they hit her like 50 times or something. And meanwhile, after all that hitting, like 100 hits, her face is like bruised and all beaten and like black and purple. They then, one of them wets their hand and puts some salt on their hand and rub it on her bruises to, I guess, cause more pain. And she's... Alright, I have to say something about the actress in the movie. There are points where I don't know if she's a bad or a good actress, because throughout the whole movie, I'm gonna try and do this without being as weird as possible. She makes noises like, like, it's literally like some of the most unconvincing groans I've ever heard in my life. And she's just like, while they're like pouring the salt on her and slapping her. They slap her 100 times, I'm pretty sure, until they decide it's not fun anymore. So After they're done, one of the men said, they all take turns, all three men take turns slapping her. Until at the end, one of the men says, "Gee, my hand hurts." How do you think her face feels? After that, it cuts to black and it shows another screen and another set of text that's called, it's called Kick. This, in my opinion, is the most boring part of the whole movie. Basically, it's just a long, way too long segment of her being thrown to the ground, very weakly kicked, being pulled back up, being thrown back down, and it just cycle just repeats itself. It's just her being abused, being thrown on the ground, being kicked. So I'm gonna save you the trouble and move on to the third segment, which is called Claw. Basically, in this segment, they get like some pliers, like, you know, the pliers that they use to tighten bolts. They grab her knuckle, like the knuckle that's right above her middle finger, and start to twist it. They, like, you can hear the skin going, which, I mean, that was pretty cringy in the sense that it looked very painful. And she's, all the while she's like doing like small moans, like, again, the stuff. Then they move on to the skin in her, on her arm, and they start to grab that skin and they start to twist it even more violently than her knuckle. And I think she starts to like get a little louder at this point. And then the segment ends. The next segment is called Unconscious, and it basically shows her being put back into the bag that she was in at the beginning of the movie, which I have to say, at the moment, it must have been like great relief to her knowing that she can rest just a little bit after all that. Even though she's in like a very uncomfortable fetal position, it must be great to just be able to relax for a little bit and not have to feel pain for that small amount of time. I wouldn't blame her if she'd rather be in that uncomfortable position than be abused. I think I would. And then the camera starts spinning for some reason, and then we see the reason why it's spinning, because they are spinning her around in a chair. A text on the screen shows up that they spun her 10 times, then 50, and then 100. To which they then grab a bottle of whiskey and forcefully shove the bottle into her mouth and pour the drink down her throat, forcing her to drink it. After she's down the entire bottle, they start to spin her again. Text on screen shows that she's been spun around 500 times. I have to say, in the first segment, I just remembered, in the first segment of Hit, they actually hit her so much. They grab a bag of quarters. They get a sock or like a bag, and they put quarters in it, and they start to beat her with it in the face so hard. She's actually like spitting up blood, like just spitting up blood. And in the unconscious segment, they spin her around so much, and with all that whiskey in her system, she keels over and starts to vomit, obviously. After that, there's a segment called A Sound. She's tied up to a chair again. They get some headphones, you know those headphones that are used to like noise cancel? Well, these ones are actually just headphones, and they play a sound, and I'm gonna play the sound right now so you can actually hear what it sounds like. That's what the sound sounds like, from our point of view. And they have that noise on full volume, and they place the headphones on her head and tie it to her face with rope and leave her there. She listens to it for quite some time. There's actually an indicator that it jump cuts to show us that she's been listening to it for 5 hours. At this point, she's still groaning, she's still making those regular noises, but then she starts to scream after 10 hours, which, I mean, I don't blame her. I'm pretty sure I'd go crazy as well. This is like the first time we actually hear her like screaming a lot. So she's screaming, and she's like, you know, just screaming really loud. Actually, this is like the most effort acting wise she's done so far. And then it shows us that she's been listening to it for 20 hours. At this point, her head is all the way back, She's like drooling. The inside of her head is like melted, metaphorically speaking, because you know she's still alive. And then the segment ends. Then it cuts to a segment called Burn. It shows a pot full of oil that's boiling. They remove the pot from the from the stove or the oven, whatever. And an indicator on the side shows that it is 70 degrees. They walk over to her and she's like tied. You know how like when you tie your sexual partner to the bed, you got their arms up top like up top here, and her legs are down there. I'm not gonna show it because obviously I can't. They walk over to her, and they walk over to her right arm, my right at least, and they slowly pour the boiling oil on her arm. She starts to groan again, making little noises, as her arm slowly starts to turn red, or at least the part where the oil is being burnt on, or the oil is being put on, and they walk away. And then they grab another one. This one has been burning at 150 degrees. Only this guy, instead of slowly applying it like the last guy did, he just dunks it on her. And she actually made a different noise. She unlocked a new sound. She went or something like that. She was like groaning, growling really loudly. At this point, the skin on her arm is burnt and it's green, and it's like torn apart. It was bad. Like if you ever make bacon and a little bit of grease got on your hand, then you know how that feels. Take it from a bacon fan. Anyways, that was cringe. Anyways, after that, we get another segment called Worms. This segment takes place right after the last segment, Burn. She's still laying there. She's kind of probably unconscious. I'm guessing every time she passes out from pain, they put her in that little bag, and then they go get her later on. This is messed up. So they have a strainer. You know that thing that they used to like drain the. They have a water drainer. I don't think that's what it's called, but I'm gonna call it that. They have a water drainer. And what they do with it? It's full of maggots and it's full of worms. And they get the... Sorry, I'm just thinking. I'm not traumatized. I'm just thinking. So they get the worms, and they walk over to her, and to her arm, the one that's burnt, and they dunk the worms onto her arm. And they're obviously alive, and they start to wriggle around, and then they pour it on her face. It's kind of gross. And then they pour it on her face, and then they pour it on her whole body. They pour it on her arm. I'm trying so hard not to gag. And they pour it on her legs. I don't know why this is gross. It's just gross to me. I hate maggots. And obviously the maggots start to bury themselves. They start to bury themselves into her eye, into her arm. Like the burnt arm, they start to bury themselves into the cuts, into the gashes of that arm. And all the while she's just wriggling around. She's making the same noise as usual. You just know. Next segment is called Guts. Believe it or not, this one is less gross than the last one. In this segment, she's on that same spot where she was. So I'm guessing... I just dropped my phone. Whoops. Sorry about that, guys. Anyways, she's in that same spot where she was in the last segment. And they start to throw... What do you think? Guts. They start throwing guts at her. I don't know if they're animal guts or human guts, if they've done this stuff before and they just have a bunch of human guts laying around to throw at their next victim, but they throw guts at her. And they're like splattering all over her face, her body, mainly her chest, all around her. They start to slide off her like... Believe it or not, this is actually less disgusting than the last one. Because Steve-O from Jackass did this, but he jumped into a pool full of it. No joke. She wakes up and she starts screaming more than she screamed before. I think more than a sound segment. She's just screaming. She didn't scream for the burning oil. She didn't scream for the skin. She didn't scream for the freaking slapping or kicking segments, she screams because she's covered in guts. Honestly, that's the worst of that's not even the worst of what's happened to her. And there's worse to come. So she's screaming and screaming. They keep throwing guts at her. They keep pelting her. It shows slow-mo shots of them throwing guts at her. Until finally she's taken off of because it then shows the empty spot of where she once was and all the guts sliding off of that spot. Then it just cuts to one of the guys walking through a forest with a mallet. Then it cuts, and he's walking towards the bag in which she's in when she's unconscious. Then it cuts to, Then it cuts to an image, like a little scene of one of the men taking a scalpel and just shoving it into her hand, like the back of her hand, and sliding it down so that it cuts her hand open. And surprisingly, it takes a long time to start bleeding. I'd expect it to start bleeding as soon as they shove it in. Which goes to show how kind of poorly the gore visuals. There are points where the gore is good, but it's parts like that that bother me because it just starts bleeding instantly. Then it shows the guy raise the mallet. Then he brings the mallet down onto her while she's in the bag like a piñata. But then it cuts to them bringing the mallet down on her cut hand, and he smashes into it, and the hand just shakes around like jello for some reason. It just goes like that. Then it cuts to the final segment, and the one that some people say is the worst because, you know, they hate stuff happening to eyes. Needle. It begins with one of the men sharpening a needle, and at this point it shows us the girl, and she is just beaten up. She's bruised, she's burnt, she's cut, she's beaten. She's just at her limit. She's just at her, like, deathbed. She's on her deathbed. They walk over to her, and they have the sharpened razor after he's done sharpening it. They hold her head back. They chain her head down so that she doesn't move it. And they shove the needle into the side of her head, shove it into her skull, and into her eye socket, inside of her eye, and out the other end of her eye. And obviously, blood is just filling her eye socket. It is just gushing blood. Well, not gushing. It's just a lot of blood is coming out, and you'd assume blood, it would be bleeding. So the needle is fully, and meanwhile, it just shows match cuts of all the things they've done to her, like Saw. You know, in Saw, when the movie's ending, and they show a montage of all the things that have happened. It shows all that. And then once the needle is through her eye and out the other end, it fades to black. And then text appears that says that even though there was no information attached to the film when the guy got it, the name, age, and identity of the three men are still being investigated by police. And then text appears at the end that for some reason was not translated. And that's it. That is Guinea Pig, Devil's Experiment. What are my overall thoughts of it? It's just torture for the sake of being torture. And it's not even entertaining. Like, you'd think that if you, like, there are people out there who are like, ooh, this is just a compilation of a girl being tortured. I might like it. I'm gonna watch it. You might like it, but it's just so boring. I was so tired. I was already tired at the beginning, but it made me even more tired watching it. It was just boring. A lot of the segments dragged on way too long. Like the scene where he's sharpening the blade, it just dragged on for too long. The kick segment dragged on for too long. The spin segment dragged on for too long. A lot of the scenes just could have been done. Oh, excuse me. Take that what you said on eBay. Nah, that's not my joke. I'm kidding. A lot of the segments just dragged on way too long. And that's saying something, because this is like the shortest film I've reviewed right now, as of now, because it's only 42 minutes long. The whole film is 42 minutes long, and it still managed to be boring. Do I think the movie is disturbing? Not really. Not really. It's just very try hard. It's just tries as much as it can to disturb you, but I think I'm just too desensitized to gore. There are people who probably do not like this movie because of what it contains, and I understand. But personally, I thought a Serbian film, yes, I'm going to keep comparing films to a Serbian film. I thought a Serbian film was more disturbing. It actually had a reason to exist. This movie does not. It is just strictly torture porn for the sake of being torture porn. Do I recommend you watching it? If you're a fan of gore and you like these types of like pseudo snuff films, be my guest. If you love pseudo snuff films, you're gonna have a blast watching this one. Overall, I think the movie is mediocre. I think and plus the acting was not that good. You have to admit, it was not that good. The acting could have been improved way better, but it just wasn't. The men barely did any acting, so I guess they were fine. But yeah, it could have been better. And that is my review and short synopsis of Guinea Pig Devil's Experiment. Do I think it's good? No. Do I think it's disturbing? Kinda. Do I recommend it? Sure, why not? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.